Hi, I'm Alexa Ray Corriea, and this is the Game Maker's Notebook podcast. You may know him as Prince Noctis or even the tumor from Malignant, but from now on, you will know him as a game developer. Today's guest is Ray Chase, the iconic voice actor turned video game designer on his team's debut title, Date Everything, a dating sim in which you can date everything in your house. I remember being told about this game way back in like 2018, 2019, and the pitch was everything in your house is alive and sexy. What do you do? Well, now we know. I really don't want to get into details here because this is probably the most out of pocket, insane, cool inside baseball conversation I've had about narrative design in a really long time. He taught himself ink. Like, who does that? Ray Chase does that. This is a really interesting conversation if you're into that kind of inside baseball narrative design stuff, or if you're looking at building tools that can talk with other tools to use in a really fun way. So please check it out. Please enjoy.
Peggy 16.
They say love sees not with the eyes, but with the heart. Perhaps that's why it turns up where you least expect it. Wait, so you're telling me you can date everything? The washing machine, the chair, the refrigerator?
Time for a snack.
This door, that door, even front and back door?
What are you looking at?
The fan, the wall, the microwave, the toilet, the dust bunny behind the couch? All right then. The curtains, bed, treadmill, mousetrap, dishwasher, desk, piano, dirty laundry, clock, candelabra, the TV, bath, towels, rubber duck, shower, floor, ceilings, shelves, ironing board, trash can, air fryer, vacuum cleaner, the devs, a glitch in the game itself, the shadows, water, earth, fire, air, your overwhelming sense of existential dread. You can even date the kitchen sink.
'Cause everything leads to love. You can date everything.
So remember, love isn't where the heart is told to look, but where it dares to wander. Date everything. Out now.
Team 17.
Ray Chase, how did you get here? Sitting here today.
That really is such a good question. Well, let's say, I think we should say this. Alexa, you and I are friends. This is no regular podcast interview where you're asking me random questions and I'm giving you random answers. We go way back.
We do.
You and I had read an article that you wrote for GameSpot back in the day.
We're doing this.
Absolutely, we are.
Okay.
About the bromance in Final Fantasy 15, and reached out, and we were both absolute nerds and interested in video games and indie games and stuff like that, and we hit it off. So you, in fact, well, we'll talk about your association with this particular title back in the day. But I'm so happy to be here. I got here by going to my desk and pressing record. I'm excited.
You remember how you reach out to me, right? Did you remember that part of the story?
Wasn't it a Twitter message or something?
No, you came up to me at like PAX and you introduced yourself and you said, I'm working on something really, really cool. I can't say anything about it, but I hope you'll like it. And I remember being like, yeah, cool. Like, great. And like, we kept in touch. And then the Final Fantasy 15 cast announcement came out, and like there you were. Hi, I'm Ray Chase. I'm the voice of Noctis. And I just remember being like, "What the fuck, dude? Like you're the Final Fantasy protagonist, and you didn't tell me." So like, yeah, now here we are.
such are NDAs. But I was definitely being a good boy then.
You were a very good boy.
I didn't want to get in trouble with my very first title. Now I say all the secrets all the time. Go ahead, fire me.
What are you going to do?
Hey, let's take a pause for a second. Alexa, your waveforms are crazy that I'm seeing on that. Are we okay with that?
Uh-huh. I didn't even notice that. Wee. Okay, how's that? Is that better? Is that better? Is that better? How about that?
That looks much better. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Perfect.
Oops. Oh, I just looked. Hilarious. Of course, my waveforms are enormous. Why wouldn't they be? Oh my
Um,
god.
and then you have like a pop. There is a thing that when you breathe too, it seems to peak as well. I
I'll
can't
try
see
to not
your
breathe.
setup. I can't see your setup super well, but it could be that if you just put your mic off axis a little bit, it might help.
What does that mean?
So like, I can't quite see what kind of mic you have, but are you talking into the top of it? Is it a shotgun mic or like a
You
cardioid mic?
talking to the side.
You're talking to the side.
Mhm.
Boy, I do see a lot of like big peaks with her breath. What do we think?
They just ordered me a pop filter
Oh, okay.
because I'm
No
a
worries.
problem.
No worries. Okay. Sorry, I have to turn on the
No,
technical
it's
side,
okay.
especially if it's recording. Yeah.
Do I sound
Um,
okay?
you do sound okay. I guess I would just be. I guess it's up to Josh to be worried about the plosives like that. Excellent.
Okay.
No worries. Uh, okay. Starting back.
Cold
Yeah, it's
approach. Final Fantasy.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, uh, came up to you. I was meeting a lot of people. Like I kept the secret that I was working on Final Fantasy for a very long time. It was like a good 2 years while we were working on it that we couldn't announce ourselves. But I was always going to developer focused conferences like GDC for the past like 15 years to try to just like meet developers, try to get
Yeah.
jobs, do whatever I could to like ingratiate myself to the industry. Because it's always been such an interest of mine. And I never thought that I would make a video game. That was always, maybe one day that would be cool. But this all came about because Robbie and I were goofing off in the studio recording a cartoon one day, and then he said, "What about a game where you can date everything?" And we all joked, and then that came in the next day, and I said, "I think I want to make that game. I think that game needs to be made. It has to be called Date Everything, and it has to have 100 dateable characters." And that was 7 years ago, almost to the day.
Jeez, do you remember what you were joking about that prompted him to say that?
I think it was I really wish we knew verbatim what it was. It's one of those conversations you don't realize changes your life. But I think it came from we were talking about what can we do aside from being voice actors. Being a voice actor is a cool job, but you're always waiting to hear back from auditions. You're always waiting, hoping that you get cast. You just try to keep yourself as busy as possible. And the best way to keep yourself busy is have some sort of project going on. And I've
Mhm.
always had some sort of extracurricular going on for my entire life. While being a voice actor, I also owned and operated a digital media production company called Dawn Machine with Logan Burdick, who ended up writing on this game a whole lot. We go way back. Just always like some other thing. Just put your efforts into something else that might
Yeah.
turn out well. So I think we were just talking about like, what if we made a video game? What could that possibly look like? I don't have a technical background. I don't have a design background. I just have a degree in theater. So what superpowers could we bring as developers if we were to develop something that other developers who have a more technical background might not have? And I think it came down to we know a lot of artists from working at cons and meeting a lot of awesome people who are able to make incredible artwork. And we know writers from theater and film, and we know a lot of voice actors. And so, with those three things, you don't make a platformer, you make a visual novel. And so then the conversation was, well, what kind of visual novel could it be? Dating sims are kind of fun. We could make it kind of cheeky. And then I think that's where we ended up with just talking about what kind of dating sim could it be. And then I think Robbie said the immortal words, you can just date everything. I think that's how it went down. Certainly makes
And
sense.
this was in like 2017.
This would be 2018, around like May,
2018.
June 2018, I think it would be. Yeah.
Okay, because then
'Cause-
I remember you showing me something at a GDC, I
Yes.
think the
The next year.
following year? The following
That
year.
next March. Yeah. So what we did was we put together a vertical slice. We had some extra money. I would say we put around $60,000 between me, Max, and Robbie to make something into a vertical slice that we could get a publisher from. There's no way we would be
Ooh.
able to actually afford to make a game like this ourselves, especially with our lack of experience. So I reached out to Adriel Wallach, who was our lead programmer, and that was on June 17th, 2018, which was exactly 7 years ago. She was the first person on board. And then Greg Batha, who did the UI UX for Dream Daddy, was also on to give game design help. And Rami Ismail to be just a general counsel, cool dude who can be like, hey, your pitches need to be better, kind
He's
of
great.
energy. He's really awesome. So we had a small team putting together some stuff. I believe it was Greg who first said, hey, we can make this in Unity and you should use Ink as your controller. And that was where my love relationship with Ink started. Very slowly at first. I thought for sure that I was just going to, write a little bit and be kind of in charge of things, but be kind of an executive producer sort of level. I had no idea how involved I was going to be over the next 7 years. And that was when I first started learning Ink. Ink is a very simple and yet very, very robust program and language that you can use to do interactive stories and branching paths. It has you're able to play it within Inkle, the little application. You can play stuff. It is not intended for use to. It's not intended for audio. Voice acting was something that we had to figure out how to make Ink learn how to deal with. And it limited some ways. Ink is even more powerful than we could do, but because we were limited that every single line had to be voice acted, we couldn't do cool stuff like Ink does, where you have variables within a sentence and you have a different word play.
Right.
It's definitely meant for interactive fiction that's unvoiced. But we started working on the language that we would use to communicate from Ink to Unity. And Greg, Adriel, and then we had around 6 writers in Robbie's garage on Miranda Street. We called it Project Miranda. Started with the laundry room characters, and we told their whole story, which was in first person. It was kind of an escape room puzzle. The candelabra locks you in the laundry room, and you have to date your way out of it. There was no date viators at this point, none of that kind of stuff. Everyone was very rudimentary. We still ended up voicing the whole thing, which I think was where a lot of our budget went. We really wanted to put our best foot forward and say hey, but we can get Laura Bailey in our freaking vertical slice. Isn't that cool? And then we brought that to GDC in March of 2019, where I met you and I said, hey, can you play this thing? Tell me what you think.
And I played it and I remember being like, huh? And you were, and then I think it was you and Robbie, and you asked me, are we crazy for wanting to make a video game? And I think my response was just fucking do it. Just do it. Why not? Just fucking do it. And now here we are. I do want to backtrack to teaching Ink to play nice with voiceover, because typically a lot of these game dev tools have ways for you to kind of incorporate an audio pipeline into it. But Ink, again, built for interactive fiction. So what kind of what kind of work, where do you start teaching Ink to talk to a system like Unity?
The big thing was Greg coming up with the double colons, which is for each speaker, you say their name, you write their name at the beginning of the line, and then 2 colons, which we then put into Unity to parse as this is the speaker, anything to the left of these 2 colons, is the speaker tag, and then anything to the right is what displays in the text box. And then then you write whatever your heart desires on that line. And then in the same line, we have a bunch of tags, which Ink allows you by just putting a simple hashtag and then teaching Unity how to parse these things. You're able to put things like we have information on every single line in our game, audio name tags, which says play this particular file when this line is called, and then a pose tag for every single line. And that's just every single line. And then we have tons and tons and tons and tons of other tags where we're able to communicate with Unity much more robust things. That when this tag is called the Dex tag, your Dex is updated. When this tag is called, Jerry's junk drawer is empty. When this tag is called, the critical path goes forward. So those, I would say we have probably like 150 different tags that we used in different ways to make our game work in the 3D overworld. Another huge difficulty with making this game is making a visual novel that exists also in a 3D overworld. You're essentially making two games at one time. One is the Ink game, the visual novel game, and then one is the 3D overworld game. And making those two things talk to each other is unbelievably difficult. That was where we came across the most problems with development.
Yeah, I can imagine, because nothing to me feels like, again, we're talking about kind of programming languages that don't play nice with each other unless you build something. Nothing feels hard coded like from this end. Like you can tell when like audio or something is like hard coded in and is not, talking, but everything is talking to each other, which I can only imagine. Like I would love to take your game and like rip open the hood and look at what that freaking graph looks like, what all that looks like.
But I think everything is hard coded. Or you mean you're talking about like systemic? There's some systemic things going on.
Yeah, because you also have all of the different the endings and the different things. Like when I say hard coded, I mean like stuff is like locked together. Everything feels like it's flowing really nicely. So if it is hard coded, I can't tell.
It is all hard coded. Every single little piece. So what I also didn't say was like there's the variables. We have like 2,000 live variables that are being tracked during the game.
Oh my God.
A little more now that we've been fixing some more bugs. We realized, okay, we need some more robust variables on some of these characters. But no, it is all in there. Ain't nothing systemic going on.
Oh my God.
We have like, when a character is. Oh boy! When everything happens. You just have to do it. We have a lot of we have a ton of variable checks that are going on. I was working on Keith's Ink just before this call, and I would say for like every line that's just dialogue with some audio on it, I would say you can go like 10 lines before a variable changes. Before something else is changing or being called. And then I guess another thing, here's another thing that is that we also had to figure out is the way that it's structured is we have main.inc, which is has all the include tags, which includes all the other Ink files. There's like 112 or so because we have a lot of stuff like rumors has its own Ink file, data decks, unfurnished business, some debug stuff. It calls it all into one big thing, and then you go into each of the Ink files. Each of the characters has their own Ink file, with some exceptions, which cause us a lot of problems. Florence and Celia share one, which cause a lot of problems. And then we have, for a character, we have, you go into their Ink file. Here's cam_trash can. This is their not at the very top. And then you have the sorter. So for each character, it's you are talking to cam trash can. You are going into Unity, and Unity on this object, it says go to cam_trash can. It goes there, and then Ink goes through the sorter. Which of these encounters are you going to go through based on where you are in other people's quests? Cam has 2 quests that he's involved with other characters, and then in his own quest, he has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different encounters that you can that you might be sorted into. And then Cam is easy. He does exist twice in the game, but he's location agnostic. He'll have the same. He's in the office as well as the kitchen, and he has the same dialogue no matter what. But then to make this game more fun, we have a lot of characters who are not location agnostic, who their quest is all about getting to know the different ones around the house. Abel has 8 different tables around the house. Dorian has 17 doors. Curtain Rod has 9 different locations where the sorter has to be duplicated 9 different times, which, here's Curtain Rod.
Oh my God.
You are going to talk to, here you go. Shade_Jim is within kurtrod.inc. And then it has another sorter underneath that to say you are talking to the Jim curtains. And then where are you in their path going forward so that the correct thing happens. During the door with his 17 doors and his interactions with stuff is 4,800 lines with, I would say, most of it being code because of all of his ridiculous sorters.
I've talked a lot on this show about the theater kid to game developer pipeline. It's a thing.
Yeah.
I have
I can see that. Yeah.
No one has ever, I think, had as aggressive a journey as I think you have.
Because, I guess so. Maybe.
Because go ahead.
Yeah, I thought going through it would just be like, I would come up with ideas and stuff. But it came to a point, and fairly quickly in development, where I said someone has to step up and just do this and design all of the variables and just do it. We had at a certain point, we had some consultants helping, and they put up a big spreadsheet with here's all the variables, and we're going to have a systemized name of doing it so everyone can communicate. And nobody used it. Nobody's going to communicate and say, I made all of these variables and I'm going to update the spreadsheet so that I'm communicating properly with everyone. Everyone just did what they wanted, and then someone had to go through and just make it work. And instead of there's a certain point when communication gets more difficult than just doing the work. And that was pretty fast, where I was just like, I'm just going to design the whole variable system. I'm just going to take on the responsibility of doing it. I happen to be good at this. I'm able to do it for whatever reason. I have no idea. But I don't mind it so much, especially with things like systemic things. Someone had to be in charge of doing systemic stuff. So for each of our characters, we have 3 different endings for them at least, plus realization returns, quests, things like that. And someone had to systematize, like, how do the realization pathings all work? How do all these variables work so that everyone can communicate with each other? And so I just ended up designing all that. It was a lot of work. Some of the harder ones were things like unfurnished business, which I realized early on, once we came up with the idea of realization, that you bring these characters to life and they leave the house, that canonically they're leaving the house, so they shouldn't come back. And what that meant was you have to find a system that blocks off the player from just realizing somebody and then not being able to go through another characters, because they appear in each other's stories all the time. And so I had to go through all the guest appearances where everybody appears and keep track of all of those. Have Skylar do all the checks. Have Skylar do all the checks again when you're returning, when she's already said them, so that she says, you've already done this. I'm reminding you of this, which is slightly different verbiage, and put them all in. That was probably the hardest part of developing, which was taking care of all of those. You have characters, man. You have characters like, here's Bathsheba in front of me. She only has 3 dateables who are part of her unfurnished business. So you only have to account for 8 different, Bathsheba, River Rebel, River Winifred, Rebel Winifred, Just Rebel, Just River, Just Winifred. So just 7 different versions of it. But then you have some characters like Dorian, where he's involved in so many different stories that his unfurnished business is enormous. And it's like 20 different. Sorry, you still have to talk to Lyric, Hirohime, Arma, Washford, all that sort of stuff. If we're going in deep, this is the kind of stuff that I don't normally talk
Yeah.
about. But I did listen to this podcast before where I'm like, hey man, this is the one where you just go down and dirty and say like, here's what we freaking
Yeah.
did, man. So
That's crazy.
it's crazy. It was really miserable for a lot of that. But also I didn't have to talk to anybody, which was also made it a little bit easier. I didn't have to coordinate as much with like, hey, what did you do for Stefan's story programming? I could just look at the work that I had already done. I didn't have to worry about version control because I made
Right.
all of the versions of it. So it was like, all right, I only have to worry about what I did if there's a bug or if someone had a new idea with the character. And that just made it easier than communicating, man. Sometimes communication is so much harder than just doing it yourself.
Yeah. But you literally taught yourself a programming language and then built a system. Like, that's a system.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. This was a weird game that nobody had ever made this type of game before because I also designed the narrative, which was we knew that it had to be 100 characters. We knew that that's what it had to be, but how do you make that not repetitive? How do you make progress? How do you make it so that
Yeah.
it's a fun game that you continue to want to play? And that was I think that's also why it worked where I was doing all the ink programming because I was like, all right, I have the best grasp on how the interrelated critical path and then the character paths all work together and then design
Mhm.
a game around it with specs points, with realization and the critical path. And again, I didn't have to talk to people. I just did it.
You just
Or
did
I would
it.
talk to
Yeah.
people and give like very meticulous assignments. We had the first round of development once we got funded by Team 17. We had a ton of writers on. It was very throw the spaghetti against the wall, see what sticks, put it in there, make it work. And then we had a lot of characters who had a lot of overlap, which to me it was something I really wanted to avoid. No overlap in this game because that would
Mhm.
just feel like you were cheated out of another experience. Um, and we had some characters that weren't fun to play that it just seemed like is this the best version of the character that it could be? Is this what people would think of, or can we subvert expectations? And if it wasn't either of those, then it just seemed like I don't know, I don't think this one is working. So then we had another round where we essentially took a lot of, I would say like we kept like 30% of that first round. We kept
Mhm.
all of those characters as they were, got all of the, uh, got a lot of interesting voices in. And then we pared it down to a much smaller, tighter writing staff, where we got Suha Al-Samkari, who I always give props for, who just took over 23 characters and was like,
Wow.
I know what to do. She was from visual novels. She knew how to do it. She's a game developer herself and super reliable, super funny, super good at writing sexy characters that aren't explicit, like really good at understanding that. And then it was a much more streamlined process of, hey, Suha, who do I got? Here's Timothy Timepiece. Here's the skeleton of it. I would write the whole ink file with all the variables and then put like general ideas under each stitch, which is how inks are categorized for each of these encounters as a stitch, and just write notes in them. Here's what we do. Here's what you have to do. Please make sure you address these issues. And then she'd just do it. She'd be the muscles and organs of the skeleton that I put in. And then we put it all together. And that was the second half of development was really paring down what this game is, making it feel really nice and cohesive. And then what Suha also did, this was very late in development, and why he's not a dateable character was she wrote the entire narrator because we did not have a
Oh.
narrator for most of the development of the game. Yeah.
I'm still dumbfounded about the I'm just sorry. I'm just absolutely dumbfounded by this.
It's
And, like-
silly. It's weird that like it all came together. It's weird that it's 7 years later that we did it. We had people
Yeah.
on this, like it just is like everyone was in the right place at the
Yep.
right time, that we were able to get people like Garrett Williamson, who seems to have a specialty of just absolute diversity in terms of music, which is what this needed. It was,
Mhm.
hey, we have this character. Can you come up with a song that doesn't sound like any of the other songs? Here's a genre we haven't used yet. And he'd be like, absolutely. 2 days later, come up with a theme. And like, who else can do that, man? Like, that's just insane.
Yeah.
Or Nijuku, who was our lead artist, who designed all of the characters and did all the expressions, and just say like, hey, we have this character. And then she came up with a cohesive house style for all of these, with such a sense of humor, such a sense of detail, and all of these things just came together. Everybody who was a part of this just came together to make something that worked. And I just can't imagine it happening with anybody else. It was the perfect team.
I'm this story kind of reminds me of the Expedition 33 team who found each other on Reddit. Like, how
Really?
did you? Yeah, Guillaume, the creative director, found Jennifer Swedberg Yen, the lead writer, on Reddit, and she was a finance
Wow.
girly, and now she's a game writer. But they all kind of found each other on Reddit because they just were bored at Ubisoft and wanted to make this new project. So how did you find all of these people who serendipitously were the dream team for this?
I would say one of the most important people, the writer, ended up being the eventual writer for Beverly the Beverage, is a wonderful person named Devin Connolly, who worked when we did the initial pitches for a vertical slice in 2019 when you played it. Basically, what happened was everybody said no, or we got really heinous offers that were like, this seems like a scam. I don't know. This is very strange. And so we were basically turned down by everybody. And Devin was the receptionist at Skybound or Skydance. I can never remember, one of the skies.
It's okay.
And she said she walked us into the president's office. We met with him, pitched it. He was interested, but eventually said no. That it just didn't align with their brand at Skybound or Skydance. And then she walked us out. But she always remembered the game. She was like, she followed up with us during COVID and being like, hey, did you guys ever get published? Like, I still think about you guys. And I was like, nah, it never happened. Kind of gave up on that. And she said, well, I know someone named Amanda Hufford who is really good at linking up indie developers with publishers. Can we give you their contact? And so entered Amanda Hufford into our lives, who is a voice actor. You might know them as Ragatha from Amazing Digital Circus, and also as Rebel in our own game. And but has such good business acumen and producerial traits that they were really able to help us through the entirety of development once Team 17 came on. And Team 17 came on solely because of them. I found out going through my emails, I had reached out to Team 17 long ago in 2019, received no response. And yet when Amanda reached out, we were able to get a meeting, and then over the course of maybe about 6 months of negotiations, funding for the game, and began in the summer of 2022, 3 years ago. At that point, we thought we had already done a lot of work on it, but we had no idea how much was left to do, and how enormous this game was going to be in terms of the increase of scope, assets, quality of life. And we also, when we got funded by Team 17, this game was isometric. We thought that would be an easier way of making it, could save us money on assets. And it led to some problems pretty quickly within that first 6 months where we were developing. You could see your character, which led to a more character creation system. You could do their body type. You could do skin color. You could do all the 9 yards. But it ended up just being so scoped out and unfeasible because we wanted the character to animate and move and have different emotes and be integrated into the environment. And the reason why I think the Link's Awakening style is a little bit easier is because he doesn't really do anything. He just puts his sword and runs around.
Mm-hmm.
He has like 3 or 4 verbs, whereas in this one we would need a million verbs for Putting toast in the toaster was an animation. Getting burned by the toaster was an animation. Using the vacuum cleaner was an animation. Running while using the vacuum cleaner was an animation. So it just ended up becoming way too
No.
much. So that was another big part of development where we had to really retool everything and say, okay, let's go back to the first person. And I'm so glad that we did. That was absolutely the right choice.
But also, like 100 characters, you kind of did that to yourself. Why why 100? Why 100? Just because it's a nice number?
The best number. I love this number 100. It's just so stupid. It's just the stupidest number. If it was when we were pitching it, we were like, could we pitch a version of this with 50 characters? And it just didn't feel right. But even more than that, when you actually look at what's in a house, there's way more than 100 discrete physical objects. And we also knew that we wanted to do concepts as well and date the game and date the text box and stuff like that. So it just seemed like 100 seemed to show what a house could be of and still feel right. I think we did a really good job of balancing like the things that have to be in there. You can't have this game without a chair. You got to have Jeremy in there. You have to have table. You have to have window, wall, floor, and ceiling. And those like necessary characters take up like 50 immediately. And then we also wanted to have fun characters, unexpected ones like our Tina the Triangle, like our Rubber Duck, like the sex toys, things that were just like, hey, we got to have this just to make it feel fun and vibrant and unique. And then put in our inchoate characters like Reggie Rejection, like Textbox Sean, like Date the Devs, and have it feel good. 100 is a huge number, and there are so many times where we come up with a feature, and then we just have to do it 100 times. And that was just learning how to do something 100 times over and over again. There's a really weird thing that happens when you've done something around 30 times. You're like, oh, that's a lot. And then you go, man, I'm not even halfway through. It's really long. Very, very hard. But I think that's why I think it's connected with a lot of people, because it's so stupid. It's a very stupid game.
You keep saying stupid. Let's come up with like a more positive descriptor for this. It is excessive.
It's excessive.
Lush.
It's a little much. It is luscious.
It is
all
luscious.
of those sorts of things.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think I like stupid because there is something remarkable about someone who does something stupid and does it anyway. Something that is obviously a bad idea for making a game. Definitely when we told a lot of developers that we were doing this, they would go like, what a bad idea. You're never going to make this game. It's impossible to test, impossible to make. You're making an asset heavy game. You have to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lines and assets for every one of these characters. Instead you can make a much more robust and sleek game that just had a core gameplay loop that would have, that roguelike thing that's a lot cheaper to make. But no, we had to design every single thing, which is very stupid.
little self-deprecating humor as well.
Yes.
When you were picking additional objects, so obviously you have to have chair, table, wall, ceiling, stuff like that. But when you were picking all of the extra stuff, like the game console, the dice, like, how did you decide what objects you wanted to make and date? Like, how did you pick?
We had an original spreadsheet, the OG spreadsheet. And I feel like we just named a lot of things that we were like, that would be fun. We had the necessary ones, which were like 50 of them. And then we did it like another 100. I think we had like around 150. And then we just kind of had to pare them down about like, how feasible is this? Does anything spark joy? Is there anything where we were like, oh, we can come up with a cool character that I would really enjoy writing or would enjoy talking to, that didn't have any overlap with anybody else, and it felt right. And that process continued throughout development up until I would say about a year ago, when we finally locked down our 100 characters.
Oh my God.
But it was always about thematic overlap and making sure that like nobody was doing the same thing. We have in your house, there are a remarkable number of objects that make things hot. There are a remarkable number of objects that disinfect things and clean things. There's just a ton of them. And how do you make it so that they all still feel different? How is an air fryer different from a microwave, different from a stove, different from a toaster, different from a water heater, different from your HVAC? How is the sink different from detergent, different from a vacuum cleaner, different from everything, air and water? So that happened up until the end. We were still paring down on a lot of characters, and it came to a lot of them. The sink one was a big one. I don't know if you met Sinclair the sink, but it was just a moment of a eureka moment where I was like, we can play with. He can be sink themed, but not talk about washing all the time. What if we tell a totally different story where instead of when you point your deviators at something and they just say, hey, I'm this guy and I'm cool with being who I am, they say, help me. I'm a sink. I'm not a sink, though. I'm a human being. My name is Martin Applegate. You have to help me. I've been cursed by a fortune teller. And then have that just be a completely different character that's unlike anybody else.
That's fun.
And so I think that was a lot of our last added characters ended up being. And then we had two more when our publisher said, hey, we have DLC and you have to come up with it in 3 months. And we just rushed and scrambled. And I wrote Mikey and Lucinda, who I think I was glad that they both also exist in completely separate spaces, thematically and gameplay wise, than all of the other characters.
Well, Lucinda is played by Ash Ketchum's voice actress, right?
This is absolutely true.
Yeah, I did encounter her and I was like, oh, so this is Big Titties Ash Ketchum. Wonderful.
Exactly.
I will take it. What a surprise. But in addition to everything you just mentioned, you also have, like, we've talked about Dorian. There are 17 versions of him, and but yet you are still interacting with him every time you encounter him. And you were talking about the curtain and the rods, where if they're in the gym, if they're there's just the rules that some of them are different, but they're not, but they're the same. Like, how do you go about why did you do that? Why did you do that?
I think some of these location dependent ones really, they had to be told that way because they were in the house so many times with window, curtains, tables, doors. They're just all over the frickin' place. And so we had to come up with, like, it just doesn't feel right if you half-assed it and you're like, all the doors are the same. You just talk to one door and it's the same. Dorian also was always thought of as this character who was always for friendship. That was from the very beginning, and always giving hints about, hey, I am the way into the office. Let me tell you about the inhabitants of this office and give you a whole bunch of rumors and hints. And so it just had to be that way. I just feel like it would have been half-assed if such real estate was only one encounter. With Gwendolyn, when TJ was writing her, he said it was immediately like, well, what's she looking out of? And I was like, well, there's 4 different cardinal directions. She should be telling a different story depending on which one you talk to. And same with Curtain Rod, they're always throwing shade. And it just seemed right where it was like, well, they're all in these different rooms. They should talk about the inhabitants of all these different rooms. These are characters that are much harder to design, but I think ultimately very, very worthwhile to make them feel good. The only one who didn't is Cherami, and the reason why is because she has her own ridiculous mechanic, which is you have to talk to her at certain times of day and certain days of the week so that she puts on one of her plays. So if that was also location dependent, I would quit the game, and we couldn't make it. It'd be
Why did you do this to yourself? So some of these characters, like you just mentioned, also have unique criteria in order to interact with them to get what you want out of them. I mean, we've already talked about how you've had to basically rule sets upon rule sets, tags upon tags upon tags.
Yeah.
But at what point in development were you looking at these characters and were like, oh, the chair needs its own mechanic? Like, was that again just like a, hey, let's just do this? Or was there like, I don't know, like, where does that come from?
When in our original pitches, when we had the first round of writers, we had a lot of pitches, and those characters just stayed that way. So we had Jello Apocalypse, Brendan Blaber, who came in, a brilliant writer, and really likes playing on hard mode just as much as I do, and took a lot of the thorniest, most difficult characters and said, "Screw it, let's make Jeremy do 5 different plays at different times of at different days of the week, because we have this mechanic in here. We have a day of the week mechanic. Why not use it?" And I think I feel the same way about game design. It's like, well, if you have a mechanic, you are doing time of day, you are doing days of the week.
Mhm.
Why not have characters who interact with that mechanic? So that's Jeremy right off the bat. And then a lot of it was, well, how do you make these characters feel different and continue to surprise? And it's characters like Timothy, I'm really proud of, where he is the cat clock. He tells you to come at a certain time because he's very prim and proper and also very annoying and off-putting. And I think some people follow his instructions, and you'd never know that if you didn't follow his instructions, you get an entirely different playthrough where he's Timmy, who's a very silly cat who says "saw we ooh woo" kind of cat, and is completely different. But that to me is a surprising interaction with the mechanic that I don't know, just keeps you playing. I just really didn't want it to be boring. Whenever a character was like, it's just a little bit basic. We always had to come up with something to make it a little bit more interesting, gameplay wise, voice wise, design wise, whatever we could do.
So is there a way to successfully date all 100 characters? Like, can you beat the game, or is it just like we're a free for all until further notice?
So yes, the critical path goes forward depending on your actions. There's 2 main paths, which is the good path and then the hate path. I would say are like the 2 like main ways of playing. The hate path also, this was really hard to design the critical path because you had to design for 100 hate playthrough and still make it work. And you also had to design for a 60 hate playthrough, which is just a little bit awkward because this is a player who is hating, but not that much, or is just remarkably bad at the visual novel aspect.
Me.
But
Me.
but not enough to like fully commit to it. And you still had to make sure that it would work for that. So the critical path goes forward as you awaken characters, which means talk to them for the first time. So it encourages players to keep going around the house and tracking your progress that way. And then once you've awakened 50 of them, you hear about realization, which is the second half of the game, where you can bring these characters to life. And then the critical path keeps going forward the more that you realize. The only way that you can realize a character is if you have a friend or a love ending associated with it. So all of the features are interacting. You're awakening characters, you are getting endings with them, you're hopefully getting a good ending, and we're not making friendship or love be one better than the other. They're both great. And then hate is where if you are hating a lot of these characters, then you're not realizing them. So then there's another way in which the critical path goes forward, which is the hate gate system, where the critical path characters sort of have bad endings that affect the critical path in sort of like a domino effect. But the dominoes only fall once you pass through another gate. So that way it would still work even if you weren't going for 100% playthroughs. You'd get like 60 realized, 40 hates, and you would get like a couple of the critical path characters who essentially hate you, and it affects the plot. But then you have the other characters who haven't been affected by the gates because you didn't trip over them by hitting more characters, and you'd have an ending. And the ending happens when you leave the house. You have different ways of different times that you can leave the house and you get a different ending. And the true ending, the best ending, is realizing 93 characters, which basically is because there's also a hate undo system where you can undo a hate ending, but only a limited number of times. You could get 13 hate endings and still get the best ending of all of them.
Jesus Christ. Okay. That's a lot. That's
It's
a
a lot.
Forget like endings. And again, we talked about this tags upon tags upon tags, funneling forever and
Yeah.
ever and ever. I imagine that QVing the system is quite a heavy lift.
QVing like
Oh,
QA.
sorry. Yeah, QA. Yeah, like
Okay,
QAing
yeah.
the system.
Yes, it was very, very difficult, and I think led to a lot of the two delays that we had, and in communicating that with our publisher, which was, I think our publisher was always aware of the game that we were making, but I think they didn't quite know how deep it went. Because of all the different ways of doing it. So on paper, it's like, well, we just have to get a love ending with all of these characters, and then love endings is tested, and get a friend ending, and friend endings is tested. But we have so many other things going on. We have a lot of
Mm.
matches in our game. You can, ship two characters together and become a throuple. We have a lot of weird stuff going on that makes it really impossible to QA. And so we reached points where they were Team 17 very graciously did not cancel our game, and instead said, all right, we'll just keep making this work. And this was the point where I had to fund the game myself, put my savings into it,
What?
because we failed. I said it on the other podcast too, but we failed every single milestone. And so we would eventually get paid, but it ended up costing about $500,000 more than we thought it would. And I thankfully had a really good year of conventions. And so it just went into that. You said, I think earlier, like, how do you not give up? And I think it's
Yeah.
because you just put everything on the line. And like, if we gave up at the 95th percentile, then
Yeah.
I would have lost everything and just thrown
Yeah.
7 years of my life down the drain. So it's just like, well, there's no other way to do it. We have to figure this out. And so we all stepped up, man, and our team is amazing for not having given up, even as annoying as this game was to work on. I think for some people.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Neej toward the ends. Yeah, Neej, our character designer, toward the ends. There were so many times when I was going through, like, oh my God, one of the last things that we did, I really fought for this. I was like, we have to have the expressions change on every line. Otherwise, it's really boring to look at, and it doesn't feel like you're getting to the character at all. It feels like you're not reacting. And so we did a whole pass on all 80,000 lines, the Expressionistas pass, where we went through. There was like 4 of us who went through and assigned a tag for every single line and a pose. And then going through that pass, it was me. I still commissioned more artwork from Neej, where I was like, man, I need a pose of Skylar where her arm is going down. Can you please do it? And I think towards the end, she's like, Ray, stop. Why do you need this? And I'm like, I have to. It didn't work for what she ended up becoming when you design the character towards the end. But I think even then she doesn't hate me, because I can see her pull requests going through where she's watching playthroughs and making changes too on her own, because I think we all just have perfectionist, really high standards of just like, but it's got to be good. It has to be good.
Yeah. Oh my God. I Jesus Christ.
You know
think-
what, Alexa? I think what's happening also is I'm actually just talking and not thinking about like being entertaining. I'm just actually talking to you, and I think maybe that's why it's kind of like a train running at you is kind of how I feel like my energy is, because I'm not. You're actually a friend, and I don't have to put on any sort of polish onto this conversation.
No, I feel like I'm learning. I feel like we're trauma bonding. Like I feel like I just feel I feel so deeply, because I have worked, so like it is no secret, projects I've worked on in the past all like dealt with systemic procedural pieces of trying to build a narrative system that is robust, that allows for a high level of reactivity to giving the player like so many different levers to pull, and then also levers that they don't realize they're pulling, so we can surprise and delight and make these relationships really make what happens in the game really feel reactive. And it's just so freaking wild to me that what you've built is essentially like a large, like just funnel of tags. And then you also had to make that talk to a system that it doesn't normally talk to, which is just a colossal amount of programming work and engineering work, which like my brain is already like swimming with like, oh my God, like because again, I'm also working on something else that, so it's like, wait a minute, I never thought of that, which is why we have this podcast. That's crazy. So then kind of going back to your writing, going back to the tags, going back to the lever pulling, several of quite a few of these characters that we are talking about that have to be realized and nuanced and different, they're also service characters. When I say service characters, I mean like Skylar, who is your glasses, who's guiding you through, Maggie, your text box Chan, like the characters that provide like Scandelabra, like the characters that basically serve a game mechanic function. Like this is how you
I
get
didn't know that
more
term, but
your phone.
definitely I thought of
service
these characters
character.
as different. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Service
you can
character,
call
yeah.
you can call them whatever you want, but I think of them as service characters. And then your phone. Like these are characters that have a very specific mechanical lift that are tied into the functionality of the game itself. And you
Mhm.
also wrote these characters to also be dateable. So when you have characters that are like
Yes.
these are functional and the player needs to interact with them, and by virtue will probably have a bit more time with these characters versus the the ship in a bottle or the dice that you kind of have to go and seek
Yes.
out. How do you weight them? How do you write them in a way that's like, is it in the writing of the character itself, or do these service characters maybe have a little more time for you to date them, so every interaction doesn't turn into something that weighs into a dating encounter? Like, how do you balance that?
That is a great question that I've never been asked before, but was certainly something that was on my mind. You have to have all these characters interact with all the systems. You have to be able to realize Skylar specs, get all these endings, and still be able to play the game. You're right. Yeah, Skylar. So I would say our service characters are Reggie Rejection.
Yeah.
The embodiment rejection appears when you get a hate ending and is the shepherd he shepherds you through the hate path.
Yes.
He rewards you as you get more hates, talks to you, says like, this is great. Dorian is the shepherd of the friend path. And then Skylar is the shepherd of the love path, as well as she's your in-game systems menu
Yes.
for when this wouldn't work on an options menu where it's like, what does she talk about? Oh yeah, she like tutorializes collectibles. She tutorializes strategy. Who should I be dating? How should I be dating? Is a love ending better than a friend ending? Can I put my fantastic red shirt back on? She also does, I think a lot of people just haven't gotten this far, but she has a lot of end game stuff where she's like, hey, I'm just going to tell you where these stupid datables are because you've been playing for long enough. Don't worry about it. I'll just tell you. So she has a lot of end game stuff. And she also makes it so that you can fall asleep at any time in the end game. Once you've realized all the characters, you're running out of people to talk to, and you need a little bit of help there. So she also does like secret things like that wouldn't really fit in an options menu. It's nice to make those things in universe. And then Maggie gives you the rumors, and then goes on some mysteries and ties a lot of characters together. And I think that's it. Is it just those 4? I'm going through.
Your phone.
Phoenicia gives you the phone and gives you the apps and stuff, but like, thankfully, her story is mostly just about doing rumors, and it's about her overheating and getting off her screen so much. But thankfully, not a system character. And then Keith the Key, I guess, is also a systems because he opens up the attic for you. And he also he's actually also another systems character because of the candy mechanic. He's the one who gives you the delicious candies that can undo a hate ending. Maybe I'll think of some more, but those are the ones. And I'll say what I had to do. Like, one of the ideas that we had originally was that Reggie Rejection and Skylar and Dorian you could only get their endings if you got 99 other ones. So like the only way to get Reggie to love you was if you have 99 hates. And it just seemed really thorny and really annoying. And like, I don't know if this makes any sense. Very hard to test. And same with Skylar. If 100 loves, she would love you and that sort of stuff. And then so I would say about midway through development, I had to scrap that and then just go, well, there must be some other way where their systems can still function and they'll treat you in different ways.
Mhm.
But they maybe, they maybe like treat you differently. Like I think Skylar, let me look at the ink. Skylar, I wrote her because you still need to get through the menu. Uh, she has like little lines that play only if you have a hate ending with her.
Oh.
Where she's like, yeah. I'll just say one that's not a spoiler. A lot of these are spoilers. I can't believe it. But like, she'll just say like, as you're leaving her, she says, "Isn't that right, you son of a bitch?" Only if she has a hate ending, but it still works, still functions. She'll still
Yeah.
let you do it. And then with Reggie, the way that, so the way I designed Skylar's friend love and hate endings were about her because she ended up being the lore person. And
Yeah.
she has, I don't know if you met the suspension of disbelief, but it is the little spring inside of her glasses that make the glasses work. And her lore, her story is about making sure that you can believe in the suspension of disbelief and make things work out.
Oh
But
my
even if you
god.
don't, the game still works.
So
And then
meta.
Reggie's, I was really happy with is you have his app and you play target practice with him where he teaches you how to be hateful and he puts you on these fake dates which say things like hello there, I'm a nice friendly dateable, and you can say fuck you or hello, and if you say hello, well, if you say fuck you, he's like, yeah, that's the right one, that's how to get people to hate you. And then you can win the target practice. And he's very happy with you. But the real way to get to him is by completely screwing it up over and over again, which makes him angrier and angrier. And then he says, I hate you. And then he goes, oh, I hate you. You're so good at this. And then he falls in love with you. So you
That's
can like
cute.
find a clever way around a lot of these things without having it mess up the entire playthrough for somebody.
There's a lot of like, I will say, going through trying and failing to date the things in this house. A lot of subversion of, oh, I'm so bad at this, Ray. I'm so bad. I was saying earlier, it's definitely like the autism. I can't tell when someone's flirting with me. So I just go, I pick the wrong thing every time. Neil Dubon already hates me in the game. I'm very sad. Uh, but the idea with like any game that has a relationship system in any form,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like it's you're doing. I think I'll use Mass Effect as an example because it's an easy one. But you have these, set of criteria, this checkbox that you're like, oh, I have
Mm-hmm.
to do this. I have to be nice. I have to be kind. I have to show interest. I have to give them gifts. I have to take them on missions.
Yes.
And then we get to have sex. And that's the consummation is like the reward. And then it's like, well, what happens after? And you're like, I did it. Now what? And it's interesting that in this game you have love and friendship kind of both on the same level of like neither one of these is better than the other, but they're both a possibility, which I think
Yeah.
is like is really refreshing. But it's interesting because some of the choices that I make thinking, okay, this is a flirty response, or this is like he's cool and nonchalant. Maybe if I'm cool and nonchalant, he'll be interested in me. And I pick the
Mhm.
wrong thing, and they're like, oh, whatever, like you're boring, which is cool. So there's a lot of that. It's
Thank
cool.
you. I think that was also just another opportunity that we had with this game because it was 100 and no lead characters. You could
Mm.
really mess around with the kindness coin system where you're not just, giving them gifts, being nice to you, just pick the right answer and they'll fall in love with you. You could tell a lot of different types of stories and
Yeah.
do it a lot of different mechanically different ways where we have a lot of characters who are points where and it's dependent on personality. Like Tina, the triangle is a points character, but she doesn't like it when you're nice to you. But she is keeping track of each of your responses, and then you get an ending at the end where did you get enough points? You got her love ending, you got her friend ending, you got your hate ending. We have, like, I would say, a quarter to a third of our characters are just strictly points based. That's like the dating sim thing, which I think is a good. You still want those characters. I don't think it's a
Mhm.
cop out to have those characters at all. I think it's if everyone was crazy, it would just be so disorienting. You have those characters, but then it also allowed us to, like, flex our muscles about, like, well, what other ways can we tell a love story, and tell them in completely wildly different ways. I'm
Mhm.
proud of Parker, who's the board games, who only gives you an ending randomly, but you have the chance to make your role better depending on how you played, but it'll still be random. And he was really,
Huh.
really fun to design and play it. If we were Mass Effect and you had a character after 60 hours of playing who gave you an ending randomly, you'd
Oh, yeah.
throw your Xbox against the wall because
Mhm.
that's awful. You'd feel like, how dare you? But if it's 100 characters and you're like, it didn't work out, you could move on to the next one and still feel like you had a really good time. And it was okay to skip characters entirely, write them off,
Yeah.
get their points, and then move on to the next one because there's always something weirder around the corner. That's also where we were able to get away with our content aware system, which is the system where if
Mm.
you find a character who has some sort of potentially triggering content, you can just skip them entirely. And we again had this weird opportunity. There was stupid stuff about our game that made it impossible to make, but there was also stuff like this where it was like, well, yeah, they can just skip Harper and Dirk completely,
Mhm.
and there's no problem. There you go. You missed out on 45 minutes of a story, but if it's not for you, then it's not for you, and you can just never have them in your game at all. And that was I think that was a cool opportunity that we were able to get around with the fact that you could just skip characters entirely because we have no lead characters.
I mean, I will never turn down an opportunity to be yelled at by Laura Bailey. So
Yes.
I went into that, but I did want to
You're
ask
into
about
it.
the.
I love it.
I'm so into it. I did want to ask about the content aware feature because typically in games, we see disclaimers like this about sensitive content. We either see nothing, and then all of a sudden
Hmm.
we're, I don't know, 20 hours into the game and we have to shoot dogs, Last of Us Part 2, how dare you? And like
Yes.
that's something I wish I knew going into that game, because guess what? I put that game
Mhm.
down and didn't finish it for months because I was upset about that.
Mm.
Um and then you have games that put the content warning right at the top and are like, this game deals with and then it doesn't really tell you where or how. It doesn't give you
When or
in a
where?
when
Yeah.
in context. And so you're like,
Yeah.
ugh, like I'm kind of like, am I going to get blindsided by something? Expedition 33. I love that game, but as a child of immature parents, goddamn, I needed a trigger warning at the top of that game. Um, well, that's like a story for another day. But I appreciate how thoughtful, and also it's not just a text box that's like, oop, like trigger warning, you might
Yeah.
want to skip. Like Skylar actually comes out and talks to you and is like, oh, this deals with this. Like, are you okay with that? Like it made it
Mhm.
it made it way like, because I know some people have, whatever you feel about trigger warnings and media and whatever. It was very thoughtful and also made the game, because you're trying to make a game about intimacy, made it more intimate, where like the game's not just like, do you want this or not? You're actually having a conversation with the game about whether or not you want to continue with this, which I think is really interesting. When when did you decide to implement that, and how did you go about doing that? Because it
That
locks
was
out content.
during It locks out content. That was during voice recording. I feel like the first couple of weeks we had people in, and you're talking about all these characters internally. You're used to what they are, but then you're putting it in front of somebody for the first time and sharing a character for the first time ever. And we found that, like, oh man, some of these are a little bit harder to talk about, or like, oh man, I wish we could have told the actor before, because it made them uncomfortable. And so we that's where we kind of came up with the idea that, like, well, maybe we can lock these off. And thankfully we were able to get them in. It was quite difficult to make these because of the amount of weird assets that you need. You need a line for Skylar. You need a line for JB, the narrator.
Mhm.
For all of these things, you need it to work with unfurnished business because you're skipping a character so that all of their variables still have to be checked, so the character can be realized. It doesn't create any blockers. You have to make data dex entries for all of these saying you skipped out due to content concerns. They're your friend. So for every single one of those, even though it doesn't take up very much time in game, was a really hard thing. It's not something you can generate systemically, where you can just run a parser and say like generate all these endings. I had to type every single one of those in manually, and it was really tough and caused a lot of bugs, and was tough to do. But thankfully, we were able to get it in before Felicia and JB finished recording, and they were able to get a lot of those in. You can see, like, I think we got it right when we got it before Benoit came in, and we got a little bit more robust where Benoit talks back to Skylar, and it's a fun little thing, but we couldn't get that for everybody. Unfortunately, it was just, we were running out of time at that point. So fairly late into development, I would say, and somehow we were able to pull it off. I know that we've had, since the demo's been out, we've had some other calls for maybe 3 or 4 other characters that need content warnings. And I think we can pull it off, but it is harder than it looks. Very, very tough to put in.
I bet choosing when, where, and like how to deploy sensitivity warnings. I don't
Yeah.
think like I think us as a medium, as like maybe the entire entertainment industry, I think we're still trying to figure, like, we haven't gotten it right yet. We're still trying to figure out
Yeah.
how, people experiences varied, feelings are varied. But I definitely think that the content aware system in this game is something that other developers should be looking at.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but only if you can, like, I mean, it is hard. Like, how do you put that into a big ass RPG to lock out a whole character? It does seem difficult. I wouldn't blame
Yeah.
them for other people going, I don't know, this seems crazy.
It's definitely a delicate balance, but for I think a dating sim that is like so like by nature, it's like this is going to be heavy, like either way. Like
Mhm.
dating sims kind of always are, no matter what they are. So I think it definitely fits with the genre. But for a big ass JRPG, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
for some.
It's for
Maybe
someone
that's
else.
for you to find out. Final Fantasy 17 will have Ray
Oh,
Chase's
no.
content aware system. Hire him. So wait, how many lines is this game? Did I ask that question already?
I don't think you did. So this game is 1.6 million words, which is almost as much as Baldur's Gate 3, which is 1.8. It is very long. It is 80,000 voice lines, and I think 70,000 unique voice lines, because there's some duplicates here and there. That's it. I think that's what. Oh,
Dude.
13,000 images, 5 hours of a soundtrack. It's and somehow only 8 gigabytes.
Dude.
Yeah.
What? My brain is doing the math. So then you've had quite how big was your writer's room?
So it did change over time,
Sure.
which
Yeah.
was, I think we started out with 20 for that
Jeez.
first one, and then ended up with 30 to 40 characters written. And then it was, and at that point, I don't think I was writing at all. I had some characters, but I was always spending all of my time doing the design process and editing as lead writer, everybody's stuff, and making sure that it got in, and giving feedback and stuff like that. I wrote 14 characters, and I did most of them at the very, very end, with Skylar being the very last one that I wrote. And so yeah, started at 20. Then we went down to like maybe 8 or 9 tight writers who ended up doing a lot of stuff. TJ Young, who wrote 6 characters, Julia, who wrote like 10 characters, myself, and then Suha with her massive 23, ended up being the full writers room with myself as lead writer.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's a lot. We also, it's crazy that, like, been through the script so many times and there's still typos. one of the things that took the longest,
There
because
always
ink does
is.
not have spell check.
No, it doesn't.
I had to put it all into 10 different, because we maxed out Google Docs. So I had to put it into 10 different Google Docs,
Wait,
because it can only
wait.
do
You can
like
do that?
600 pages at a time. But even then it still took me a week to do the first spell check, because we have so many made up ass words in this and weird ways of talking. Like Celia says, "I am a ceiling of the world," which makes no sense grammatically. And we have tons of characters who talk in ridiculous ways. Abel with his darn Teutons and stuff like that, and made up words and parody names. So it took a full week of spell check, and still, man, even after that, I would still maybe there's 1,000 errors that we fixed in between that and where we are now, and we still have on our very robust Discord, we have maybe 40 outstanding typos that I have to put in the next couple of days. It's I don't know, will it ever be done? I have no idea.
I can't believe there's an hearing that you maxed out Google Docs. To me feels like, okay, we found the end of the world and sailed off of it. Like that's
Yes.
I did not realize that was a possibility. So new
Yeah.
fear unlocked. God
600 pages or so. Yeah.
God forbid. So ton of writing, ton of coding, tags, rules, spell check, everything. And then the thing that has called many a thirsty fan to this game is your casting.
Yes, we
So-
also have all these voice actors. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, them too.
Them too.
I imagine, or maybe you did, when you first came up with this and you and Robbie were discussing, were you like, let's get everyone's favorite voice actors and basically create a thirst trap for money? Was that like part of the pitch?
It was just like I said before, it was just our superpower that we knew a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then we also had, going into this, we knew that we wanted to make it union. We wanted to pay residuals to our actors, because this game was built out of the fires of the first video game strike, which I was a major part of, which was about video game residuals, which we didn't really get, unfortunately. We get a couple $100 after a game comes out, which is nice. I'm not complaining about that, but it's not a true residual. And we were just like, let's actually pay our actors union rate plus profit share, the way that we want it to be. And I think that was something that made the casting of this more easy than not. We had a most favored nations contract where everybody worked for the same rate, which I think made it a little bit easier to get our top tier talent to sign on, because they're like, oh, if this person is doing it for that rate, then I'll do it for scale too.
Yeah.
But I think that only got us so far. There were points where we had an extremely specific casting request. We had this Gaia is Newfoundland accent, very strong Newfoundland accent. And where do you find someone who can do that? And so we found a lot of people who are very much up and comers, who I'm super, super proud of, like Oz Ryan, who plays Gaia. Lux, the lamp, is Michael Lors, who's unbelievably talented, just someone who elevates every single line he says. I'm always happy to hear a Michael Lors line read. To fill out the rest of our cast, all of these lesser known talents who I'm super, super proud of. We were able to give them a bigger stage to perform on.
So were there, when you were kind of writing these characters and coming up with them, when you started making that spreadsheet of here's the object and here's how we want them to sound, did you start thinking Laura would be perfect for this, Matt would be perfect for this? Or did sort of you created these characters and then eventually you were like, oh, this person would actually be perfect for this? What was the...
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really was kind of half and half, where some of them really obviously spoke to us. And some we were like, well, we know we want to have Steve Bloom in this, but where? We know that he can do a ton of different voices. Where does he fit in? So it was a big puzzle that we kind of filled in piece by piece and made it work. And for myself, I was always Wall and always Scandelabra. I love those two characters.
You're very good as Candelabra.
Thanks.
So like when you cast people, like, do you give Neil Newbon sides? Sorry, Neil, bringing you up again. Like, do you just give him sides and go, so you're a dryer? Do you how
Yeah,
does
that was also another difficulty in making the game because we had no lead characters. It meant we had to get everybody done in one session at 2 at max because we didn't have the budget for it. So we had to meet the person, make them feel at ease, explain the entire game, which is already batshit crazy, and then explain their entire character, which took up maybe about 20 minutes each session. And then we had to do that every single session. So normally you have your lead characters and they just go right to work and you're able to be super productive. But for us, we were just hampered by that a little bit. But thankfully, everyone seemed to have a really good time. And somehow we got everybody recorded. But yeah, explaining the character was always tough. Neil and I actually go way, way back to 2016 when I flew out to Audio Motion in the UK because I wanted to have a motion capture reel. And he was the teacher there. We got to know each other then way back in the day. So I'm super excited for his fame and glory that he has. And he did an amazing job as our dryer.
He did. I like those two characters. I'm sad that he hates me already, but maybe I can try again later. So what would you say now that you've gone through that? You started an indie studio. You built what you are describing is a proprietary narrative tool, and
What?
you're still yeah, you built a proprietary narrative tool, bruh.
You mean ink?
No, like the way that Ink talks to Unity, like the way that you built everything, that's a tool. You built a tool.
I guess so.
Yeah, you totally
I don't know.
did. What do you mean?
I'm just using the things that were there. I don't know.
Oh my God. But using them in a way that like I haven't spoken to anyone else who has found a way to make Ink work for a visual novel with a fuck ton of audio, and like this is new ground. This is really cool.
That's
so you've
awesome.
done this.
Well, I'm happy to share.
did
I
it.
don't think this is proprietary. I think everyone should learn how to use this and
Oh my
and use
God.
the way that we did it. Yeah.
I'm literally like, I'm going to drive up to your house and I want to look at your computer.
Yeah.
I want to look at it. I want to see it with my eyeballs. I'm so fascinated by this.
That's the crazy thing, right? About words is where's my properties? This is a 38 megabyte file. You don't even have to drive up. I'll just pop it on my phone.
Oh my God.
You'll have the entire script of the game. It's crazy.
I want to see it so bad. Yes, please and thank you. I'll trade you for a lot of wine.
Oh wait, you know what? It's not even that big because main.json is like half of that. So I think it's like maybe 10 gigabytes. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh man, I'm about to become insufferable. Thank you for that. What is I could ask the simple question, which is like, what is next? But now that you kind of have, I heard that, but now that you have the, you are a dev now. You did the dev thing. The pipeline worked. And you have this game that a lot of people are connecting with, having a lot of fun with. I think it's like one of the most streamed dating games ever right now.
It is the most streamed dating game of all time. It's crazy.
Yeah. So like for you moving forward, what did you learn through this process that nuggets of wisdom that you would share with other people who want to just start an indie studio and make a game, who maybe are a little intimidated to jump into a program like Ink and just start working with it? Like, what is your advice for those people?
That's a great question. I don't know, because I certainly didn't do it in a healthy way. I just kind of I seem to be motivated by conflict, by anger, and by frustration, and I think it just makes me go, dang it, I'll just do it.
Oh, yeah.
And that
Spite's a
kind of like
powerful
got me
motivator.
through. Spite is a powerful motivator. And I think that worked for my personality, but I don't think it works for everybody. And I don't recommend it either. I've certainly done a physical toll on my body. I haven't been working. I haven't been in touch with my body in a
Oh,
couple of
no.
years. I gained 50 pounds working on it. That was the only way that I was like able to keep my sanity. It was like, all right, just eat whatever gets you through it, because it'll be over soon and you
Comfort.
have the rest of your life to figure it out. So I don't know, not a healthy way.
No.
I don't know what the advice would be.
No.
It would be like, just do it if you want, and if you don't want to, don't do it. You don't have to make a video
Yeah.
game, and I don't know, treat people well. I think it was nice to keep people on the team and keep them motivated. I think by always praising what they've done, how far they've come, and motivate them to continue on this ridiculous scheme, without burnout. I don't think we had any burnout on our. Trying to think, like literally, did we anyone like, I can't do this anymore? I don't think anybody left. Yeah, none of our leads. We did have a programmer who left.
Happens
But
on every game.
I think that was someone where we made a mistake in hiring someone who didn't quite have the veteran, what is that called? Experience,
Experience.
to
Yeah,
deal
yeah.
with how ridiculous the game became. I think we had, originally thought that this was going to be a lightweight game, with some funnier, smaller characters. And then when it became a ridiculous game, I think they got burned out for sure. But I think that was the only casualty that we had, which is pretty good considering the team was maybe over 80 people.
So basically, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
Oh
exactly right.
boy, but you did. You did do it, and it's a
Yeah.
thing, and it's out there.
It's weird, man.
And
It's
you
really
just
weird
did
that
it.
we're sharing these characters with people, like just being able
Yeah.
to see them. I have to say, like, fan art is really weird. I think a lot of people get a lot of developers talk about, like, it's so weird to see your fan art in the wild. And for me, what's really weird is I'm so used to the exact poses that we made for all of these characters, and it's really weird to
Yeah.
see them not doing the one pose that I've been looking at for so long. It's
Oh.
like, Johnny Splash, you never stood like that before. That's crazy. He's standing the wrong way. That's always what's surreal to me.
I've seen some of the fan art, and it's probably just going to get dirtier over time, which is what you want.
Yes.
So, Tatya, really incredible. Thank you for being like just completely like raw and just honest about this whole thing.
I wouldn't have
like,
done it if it wasn't you. Otherwise, I'd be a lot more like, yes, it was a good time. But because it's you, I'm able to just be myself. So thank you for that.
Oh, of course. I appreciate it. Like, we'll obviously now, like, you'll never be rid of me because I will have more questions as I get farther and farther into the game. And as I process everything that you've just told me, I think this is a really just good example of just like resilience in indie development and just trying new things. So be proud.
Thank you. I'll be proud once we fixed I think we have like 300. We went from on our Jira, we were down to 20 bugs, known bugs at release. And now I think we're around 300, and it's just like, all right, back to the mines. Let's do it. Let's get this thing over the finish line. But I want this game to be pristine, where people can really, really trust it and feel like they can really experiment without feeling that there's dangerous bugs lurking around the corner.
Hey, there's a DLC idea, some bugs.
Yes, you can date the bugs in this game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've met them.
No, not yet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.